Hello everyone, my name is Kate Marshall. The name of my channel is called Inked Paper Art, and today is day 62 of a project I started on the first of the year that's called 365 Days of Junk Journal Ideas. I do a short 15-minute video every day showing you something different about junk journals, how to make junk journals, how to decorate junk journals, pieces of ephemera for junk journals, different binding methods, beading, all different manner of topics are covered for junk journals. One video at a time every day. So anyway, today is day 62. We are going to talk about binding your signature into your journal cover. So I am in the process of making these three blue journals right now. This one is nearly completed. It has all of its ephemera in it, you know, the signature sewn in, everything like that. I've started decorating the cover. Haven't finished it yet, but that's that one. This one here has a signature in it, and this one also has a signature in it. We need to bind the signatures in these two journals today, and I'm going to show you a 3-hole pamphlet stitch binding method for one of them, and then if I can fit it in this video, which I doubt I can, probably another video, I will show you the 5-hole pamphlet stitch binding method in the other journal. So that's where we're at, guys. We're going to do some journal binding today. Now, if you have made journals before, you probably are familiar with these techniques, but I might do it differently. I might offer some different kind of tip or trick for you. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started so we can move through this process. Plus, I have a journal binding kit that is my favorite all-time low-cost, budget-friendly journal binding kit. So if you don't have good journal binding supplies, I'm going to link my favorite in the description box below, as well as there is a tool that you cannot get on Amazon. I will tell you what it is and where to go get it, but it is very important for making journals efficiently. Okay, let's get started. So anyway, this one I'm going to move off to the side. We can look at it. Basically, all of my ephemera is placed in there. Most of it is glued down. I still have, you know, the final decorating and stuff like that to do in this journal, but it's getting close to being finished, you know. There's a lot of stuff in here. It's getting kind of fat. I still have a closure that needs to happen, decorating the cover, decorating somewhere inside, but it's getting there. So that's that journal. The other two, like I said, they need to be bound. I wanted to show you a couple things before I just went ahead and bound them. So first of all, when making your journal signature, I just did a video, the previous video to this one, I showed you how to assemble the perfect junk journal signature. So if you need help like deciding what pages to put in, what order to put pages, how many pages per signature, how many signatures per journal, all that kind of information, that's in the last video, number 61, I believe. And so this one, we're going to talk about binding the signature into the journal. So first of all, this is a signature. A signature is the bunch of pages that you put together that is going to be sewn into the cover of a journal, and that's what makes a junk journal, right? So we're going to talk about putting this signature in here. Now, a couple of things to look at when you make your signature. The more pages you put in your signature, this one has a lot of pages in it, right? These are very thick, fluffy signatures, but they're perfect. So when you add pages to your signature, you can see this is the first page right here, and it's the furthest back from the edge. So you can see the more pages I add, the more the signature comes out to the right. And you want to make sure that your signature is going to fit into your cover and not overhang this edge of your cover. So if you look, I have already trimmed off some pages so that this one fits in nicely. And if you look at this guy here, this guy has not had any pages trimmed yet. And so again, this is the first page. And then all the way out here is the last page, the center signature page. It sticks out really far. And so as you add pages, you're going to end up with this situation, and it may not fit nicely into your cover. Like if I was to put this one in and close it, I've got some pages sticking out. So that's no good. You need to trim off these pages. So let's talk about the easiest way to trim these pages off after you assemble your signature. This is the recommended way that I'm going to tell you to do it. Now there are different ways, but this is the way I found is the easiest. list. Assemble your signature. Do not care how wide your pages are, how much they stick out. You can fold pages in, like if they were sticking out a good amount, you could fold them in and they would be little flip outs like this guy. So see, this page is really, really wide. You can fold them in. So that's one method of dealing with overhang. But if you just have a little bit of overhang here, what you do is you put your signature into your journal cover and you see about which pages are sticking out. So if I look at this one, I can tell from this blue page right here where my thumbnail is, that one is really the one that starts to stick out. You might trim a couple more back from that just to give yourself some space. But you can see basically I want to pull this part out of my signature and I want to trim off a little bit of these pages. So what I would do is literally pull this part out of your signature. If you have any little add-ins that's wrapped around that, just leave them in place. Let that sit there just like that. Pull these pages out, make sure that they are straight. You can take them in two sections. If you have a really thick amount of them, you can take, maybe we take this blue section and we trim it, and then we trim this one as well. If you don't have that many pages, then you can leave your signature put together and you can just trim the whole entire thing in the trimmer. So all I do from here is put it in my trimmer and slice off everything that's overhanging from, a little bit here. You just want to trim off these pages. Then I find where it was in the signature and I put it right back in, right there. And then it won't overhang anymore. So I've already done that to this one to save us some time, but I did want to talk about that because it's one of the problems that you run into when you're making journals is that, the pages get pushed out to the right. So just be aware of that, plan ahead for it. And you cannot effectively trim those pages to the nice, even edge after you've bound your journal. So you want to trim your pages before you bind your journal. And let me say that again. You want to trim off your pages before you bind your journal. Trust me on that one. Okay, let's get started binding. So I'm going to set this one to the side. We're not going to play with that one today either. We'll play with that one and do a 5-hole binding method. There's so many things we got to talk about. So we'll do a 5-hole binding method on that one in the near future. So this is the center of my signature. Before you bind your signature in your journal, you want to flip through and make sure, first of all, that your signature is the right side up to your cover. So I haven't decorated this cover yet, but this pattern here definitely has, I shouldn't say definitely, but it does have a top and it does have a bottom. So you want to make sure that your signature is going the right way with your cover. You want to make sure that all of your pages are lined up the right way and that they're all going the right way. You don't want to have an upside down page or a backwards page, or you don't want to accidentally not catch, like if you have a small add-in, like this page is shorter. If you have a very small add-in, you want to make sure that you positioned it so that when you bind your signature together, you're catching all the little short pieces of paper within your signature. So you can see I have quite a bit of little add-ins and old pages and things like that. So anyway, my signature is done. I've already gone through it. I know everything is good there. So the next thing I do is I find the center page in my journal. And now that I've trimmed it, it's harder for me to find right here. This is the center spread of my journal. So I take my cover, I line them up, put them in there, put this right into the center, and I just give it a squish. I make sure that it is positioned evenly spaced bottom, evenly spaced top. We already know that it fits nicely side to side here. So you just want to make sure it fits nicely from top and bottom as well. Again, if you have any overhang, deal with that before you bind your journal, because after you bind your journal, it's really hard to fix these issues. It's not impossible, but it is really hard. So from here, we're going to look at binding tools, okay? So I have waxed linen thread. This is just a off-white, tea-dyed color wax linen thread. This is what I bind 99% of my journals with. I will link this below. This one's from Amazon and I love it. Plus you get this gigantic spool, which I've been binding journals for a long time and I still have a ton of it on there. In the binding kit that I've linked below, you get this little plastic test tube of a bunch of different size needles. These are bookbinding needles. They're great needles. And you also get an awl. So this is what I'm going to use to poke the holes for my signature. You also get some binding clips. This is how you clip your pages to your cover. I'll show you that. And then this little guy right here, this is a bookbinding cradle. So this is a place where you set your journal in, and I'll show you how this works. But what's important is it has this little channel right here in the center, and that's where you're going to poke your holes down into so that you're not marking up your craft mat, all that kind of stuff. This is a very, very useful tool. I will link where I got this below in the description box, but it is nearly like the best bookbinding tool out there. I'm just going to say that I love it. It's made it so much easier for me. Okay, so next, what do? How do we bind this? You're going to pick out whatever needle you're going to use. I should have pulled one out of here earlier. So pick out whatever needle you want. I'm going to use a fairly small needle, this guy right here. At least I think that's the one I'm using. And then we're going to measure out our string, and we're going to clip up our signature and get this guy ready to go in our cradle. Okay, so I already know everything's good here. I'm going to find that center again, put my thumbs in the center, hold that center together, put it in there, place it in, position it left to right, and then put the whole entire thing in my cradle. So the job of the cradle is to hold your cover and your pages and everything together and allow you a place to poke your holes down into. So as long as this guy is aligned from top to bottom, and he is, I'm good to clip. So this is when you take your big binder clips and you just clip them on there. And you notice I'm pushing down in the center constantly. I'm not letting anything shift or move or rise up. I'm keeping it all flat. And then from here, you just want to make sure that your pages do not have any bubble. No bubble in your pages. That's all good and smooth. That's clipped. We don't need to flip these down. It's clipped. It's good. From there, we're going to measure out our string and we're going to thread our needle. So you're going to go 3 times. I go 3.5. 3 is the bare minimum. If you want to tie a bunch of nice beads on and have some room to play with beads and charms on your signature strings, I suggest you go at least 3.5. 4 is also good. It gives you a lot of room to play, okay? The string is nearly, from going to 3 to 4 is nearly like a penny. So don't stress about that. Okay, so then you're just going to thread your needle. This thread is waxed, so you can just get it right through the hole of your needle fairly easy. I say that and then I may have chosen too small of a needle. We'll see. Nope, we're good. We did it. Even though my eyes are old now. Okay, so you don't need to tie a knot. I just left a little bit of string here at the top, and then what I do is I just pinch it with my fingers, and that's how I use it. You don't tie a knot in the end. You just leave your string just like this, and then you start to sew. And so from here, you're going to set your needle to the side, set your needle and thread to the side, and you're going to take your pokey tool, whatever kind of pokey tool you have, and this is how you're going to poke your holes. You are not going to measure. Let me say that again. You are not going to measure. This is a single signature 9x6 journal. So you do not need to measure. Do not mark them. Do not measure. Do not put a pen in here. Nothing. This is the easiest way to bind and the best way to bind, okay? So the first thing you do is look down in here and find the center. It doesn't have to be measured. It doesn't have to be exact. You're literally just going to estimate where the center is. I think that's about the center. So I'm going to move my hand as much as I can. That's about the center, okay? So I've got my awl where the point is pushing down directly into the center of that crease. My journal is down in my book cradle, and I'm just going to press that all in there. Now I've got fabric and cardboard and all kinds of things that I'm going through. So I'm going to screw that in there a little bit, give it a good wiggle, and then we're going to pull up. And that's the first hole, okay? From there, this is a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So you poked your center hole. Now you're going to come up here to the top, or you could go to the bottom. It does not matter. And you're going to poke about, I'm going to say about 1.5 inches in, okay? About 1.5 inches in from the top. This is the top, about 1.5 inches. Again, it doesn't matter. They don't have to be evenly spaced. It's totally fine. So there's that one. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here at the bottom, about 1.5 inches in, doesn't matter. And you're going to poke that guy. And then I just give it a little wiggle. And again, it's because I've got a really thick velvety fabric on my cover. And so there's our holes. We do not need this all anymore. He's good. We can put him to the side. Now we're going to pick up our needle. And don't take your book out yet. Before you take your book out, take your needle, poke it down in that center hole. As far as it will go, poke it in there. And now pick up your book and take it out of your cradle. You're done with your cradle. You don't need it anymore. Your needle is sticking out of the bottom. That's holding everything in place. Your clips are also holding, but putting the needle in before you take the book out of the bookbinding cradle, make sure everything stays in place. Plus, you've already got it in the first hole, and it's really easy to go from there. So then poke it through all the way. You've already started it. Poke it through all the way. Notice I'm holding my journal with my thumb pressed into the center, holding those pages in with my thumb down there. And I'm going to put this needle all the way through and pull it to the other side. And I'm just going to pull it until my tail is sticking out like this. Like it's not short, but it's sticking there. And then I'm going to put the tail underneath my thumb right here. And I'm just going to hold the tail with my thumb from this point on. Now from there, you're going to take your needle and you're going to go up to the top hole up here. Now when you have fabric for a cover, it can be a little bit hard to find that hole. I think we did pretty good there, so I might have to shift. And so I've got it in the cover, and now we're through and we're in the top hole. Okay. So from there, you're going to pull it out, and I'm going to repeat the steps here in just a second. So we did in the book cradle, we poked down the center hole, out through the back, and then we went from the center hole in the back up here to the top hole, and we went inside from the top hole, and that's where we're at right now. Okay. So at this point, go ahead. You don't have to pull it tight, but go ahead and make sure that that is tighter and it doesn't have a big loop of thread in it. And from here, we're going to go all the way down to the bottom hole. So you're going to need to move that one out of the way, and you're going to go all the way down to the bottom hole with your needle. Poke it in there. If you need to close your book, sometimes closing that book up, I mean, it was closed when you poked the hole in there, so make sure that you kind of maintain that. Sometimes things have shifted just ever so slightly, and you need to wiggle your needle around. This is normally what happens to me. So hold it kind of closed again, wiggle your needle around just a little bit. Keep wiggling until it goes through. And again, I'm going through that fabric in the back there, so it does take just a second. Okay, so I'm wiggling that needle just slightly like this and getting it to go through. And I was stuck right there on my fabric, and then I'm all the way through. And I will repeat the steps again as we go. And so now you're all the way, you're through everything up here, and you're out your last hole here. The last step of sewing this signature in is you have to come back through this center hole right here. The center hole already has this thread in it. So at this point, you want to pick that thread up that's inside right here. This is your tail, and you do want to tighten your strings, not pull hard, but just tighten, and then hold that string down with your thumb right there. And what that's going to do is it's going to put tension. It's going to put tension on this top string right here, and it's going to pull it to one side. That might make our, getting this needle through this hole without catching the other thread a little easier. And so I'm going to close up my journal, and I'm going to put that needle back through that same hole. And this one you do need to wiggle. This is the hardest one to do because you're going through a hole that really was only made to have one thing, one piece of string in. And so if you need to open your book back up, if you need to back your needle out and do it again, and you're just going to be gentle with it and wiggle until you get it in there. And so it does take just a second there to find its way. Yep, just a second. And so I'm wiggling, making sure that that needle is popping out into the center of my journal. And I did need to wiggle it for just a minute. So I will also show you what to do if you cannot get it to go through there. At that point, your journal signature is sewn in. Everything is sewn in here. You can go ahead and take the needle off the end. Just pull it off the end, put it back in your test tube so you don't lose it. And then the next thing that you want to do is you want to take a look back here first. This is the first place you need to check. You need to make sure that these two strings, you should have two loops there that look like that. And then from there, you just want to just give your little strings here just a snug, just a pull, and make sure that those are tight. They're not crossed. Nothing's messed up back there. Everything's good. And then you need to look at your signature strings. So we can take these clips off as well. They're all good now. Nothing is going anywhere because it is sewn in. It's not tied yet, but it is sewn in. So at this point, you need to look at these signature strings and see how one is much longer than the other string. We want to even that up a little bit. So the next thing you do is you take your two strings and you look at this center string. And you want to make sure that one of your strings is coming off to the right and one of them is coming off to the left. Now, right now, I have the center one, the center string here, and both are on the right. So you just want to feed one underneath the center so that one is coming off to the left and one is coming off to the right side of your center string. From there, just give it a snug and tighten it up. It's all good. Don't pull too hard. Just tighten. And then turn it over. Look at that back. Make sure that back is perfectly smooth and tight. And from there, this is when you're going to knot it. Now, you do want to look at your signature strings and see if they're okay. If they're not okay and you need to adjust, just loosen that center one up a little bit. Loosen it up. And then look at your signature strings and decide, okay, well, this one is the short one. So this is the one that I want to snug up to make even with the next one. And so now our signature strings are much more even. So you pull on the shorter of the two to snug them up. And then from there, we're going to snug everything up again. We're going to snug everything up. And then we're going to tie a double knot. There's one. There's two, so you just cross them over, and I'll show you that again. Just take your two strings, cross them over, tuck one side of your string under and through like this, and I'll show you that part again because we have a lot of new people who have never done that. So you take your two strings, they're waxy, cross them over so that they're crossed. Take one string, doesn't matter which one, flip it around and tuck it under and through that big loop that you just made. This is the loop here. See the circle? So you crossed them and you take this one and tuck it under that. And then you tie it. So I've actually got 3 there. No big deal. It's perfectly fine. And so now our signature strings are a lot closer together. Everything's good. Our signature's sewn into our journal. We didn't sew it in upside down. All of our pages are good. We made sure that we, had everything positioned so that we caught all the little fun elements that are in here. All of our little pages are caught. The CD envelope is caught and sewn in. Everything is good. This is a beautiful signature for a journal, and it doesn't hang out the side, and it doesn't hang out top or bottom. Not that you could see, but it doesn't hang out top or bottom either. So that's a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. I will link everything that I think is important for binding journals in the description box below the video. And the next time I do one of these, I'm going to bind a 5-hole method for those of you who are curious about that. I do prefer the 5-hole method, but I will caution you and tell you the 5-hole method is not ideal when you have all of these pages and all these small little elements and things like that in here. Yes, it will hold them possibly more secure. I think a 3-hole is more than plenty secure. Nothing is ever going to go anywhere. But a 5-hole means you have to have 2 additional holes, and there's a lot more sewing in and out. And when you have all of this fluffy thickness and all these small little interactive elements, they're all different thicknesses of paper. You saw I had this little glassine poppy dyed bag. I have a CD envelope, ledger, antique stuff. The 5-hole is a little bit more challenging to get through a thicker, fluffier signature. So my preferred is a 3-hole, which is what we did here. Everything looks good from the back. We're all good, and we're ready to move on to the next step. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another short 15-minute video. Have a great day. Bye.